In the sport of boxing, momentum plays a key role in maintaining success.
I do believe Mayweather has coasted in this fight to go 49-0.
Once a boxer gets on a hot winning streak, it normally takes a special effort to derail them.
When Muhammad Ali put George down, he had proven that he is indeed the greatest.
Today, we'll be taking a look at some of the most extraordinary unbeaten runs in boxing history, regardless of the level of opposition.
So if you had a padded record, what would be James Toney's record right now?
155-0.
To compile this list, we literally scanned through thousands of boxers' resumes to find some of the more unknown unbeaten streaks. So as always, please hit that thumbs up button if you enjoy our content. Coming in at number 20, we have, would you believe it, the man who I'm sure many lesser informed boxing fans would think has the longest or one of the longest runs in boxing history, Floyd "Money" Mayweather.
I was born to win. I was born a winner, I'm gonna die a winner.
The impressive thing about Floyd's 49 unbeaten run is, unlike so many of the fighters above him on this list, the names on his resume are just about better than anyone else's. Cotto, Canelo, Marquez, Pacquiao, and I'm sure you guys know how long the list goes on for. At number 19, also with a record of 49-0, we have the former heavyweight champion Rocky Marciano.
You talk about desire. You talk about doing anything to win. That was Rocky Marciano.
Certainly an overachieving heavyweight of his time, Rocky was never really supposed to reach the heights he did. 99% of the time, his opponents had a longer reach than him, a significant height advantage, and more ring experience. It's often thought that heavyweight legend Joe Louis never stood a chance against the rising unbeaten Marciano, when in fact, Joe Louis was the heavy betting favorite heading into the clash, despite the barbershop talk of the Brown Bomber being 137 years old.
One time Frank Sinatra comes out here and sat down in this chair. And I said, Frank, you hang out with Joe Louis, just between me and you. How old is Joe Louis? You know what Frank told me? He said, hey, Joe Louis 137 years old. 137 years old.
At number 18, recognize the picture? Yes, the face of Boxing Legends TV, the Fighting Marine, Gene Tunney.
Of the 10 rounds, in each fight, 20 in total, Dempsey wins one round. That's how good Tunney was.
Of course, a fighter we hold in high regard, Gene Tunney was nothing short of a boxing mastermind in the 1920s. His 49 unbeaten streak was put to rest by the man we regard as the second greatest fighter of all time, Harry Greb. Tunney later avenged that loss a further 3 times before moving up to heavyweight and defeating the legendary champion Jack Dempsey twice. Lots can be said for the great man that only ever lost one fight in 85 contests, but it's a video we will be saving for a later date. At number 17, we have the man regarded as the greatest Brazilian boxer of all time, Pedro Carrasco. The 50-fight unbeaten streak of the bantamweight legend is held in high regard, and at one point he was recognized as the second greatest fighter of all time by the International Boxing Research Organization. He only lost 2 fights in his 78-fight career, both losses coming in the same year to Japanese legend Fighting Hirata. At number 16, we have the long-reigning featherweight champion Chris John.
The Dragon John!
December 6, 2013 would be the day the 51 undefeated streak would come to an end for the Indonesian boxer that went by the nickname The Dragon. During his close to 10-year reign as featherweight champion, he defeated some great fighters like Derek Gainer and Juan Manuel Marquez. At number 15, we have by far one of the most underrated fighters of the last 20 years, Ricardo "Finito" Lopez. In our opinion, the greatest minimum weight fighter of all time, and an impressive 10-year reign as a champion supports that. Lopez never actually lost a fight in his entire career. He retired 51-0 with 1 draw, and because of the weight division he fought in, it's often overlooked how great this little man was. At number 14, we have, for me personally, an easy entrance to the top 50 greatest boxers of all time, Freddy Miller. You will struggle to find a more battle-hardened resume than the Cincinnati featherweight. The amount of experienced men he beat is staggering and, quite honestly, unprecedented. From 1928 to 1930, he put together an incredible run of 54 fights unbeaten, having 2 draws in the process, but still an impressive feat. At number 13, we have the Thai flyweight marvel, Hongsuk Wonjingtam. Sorry to all of my Thai subscribers if I completely butchered that name. I was planning on calling him by his nickname until I read it and realized it's even more difficult to pronounce. That aside, he is one of the rare fighters of recent times that came close to breaking the 100-fight barrier, having a total of 97, scoring an impressive 55 unbeaten streak along the way. During his career, he also made countless defenses of his WBC flyweight title, proving once again that Thai fighters are strictly TBE when it comes to making title defenses in the lower weight classes. At number 12, we have the only boxer in history that was 100% represented by his nickname, Mr. Untouchable, Nicolino Lochet. You may have seen the great Argentinian fighter featured in our defensive skills montage on YouTube, and rightly so. We even slotted him at number 1 on our 10 greatest defensive boxers of all time. But what many people don't know is that he also holds an unbeaten streak of 56 fights, and that was his second great run. His first consisted of 54 fights, bringing his total record up to 123 bouts with only 3 losses. At number 11, we have the former English club level fighter Hal Bagwell. For years, Bagwell was credited with the longest winning streak in boxing history. The Ring Record Book listed Bagwell as number 1 on their all-time list of most consecutive wins. From 1938 to 1948, Bagwell was credited with posting a 180-0 winning streak. However, in recent years, there seems to be some doubts as to this winning run. Even the Guinness Book of World Records listed Bagwell for years as the record holder for most consecutive wins. But prominent boxing research website BoxRec listed Bagwell's run to 68 unbeaten, and at first glance, it's hard to pick out any notable names on his resume. Coming in at number 10, we have the former bantamweight champion who retired undefeated, Jimmy Berry. The only boxer on the list that fought his entire career in the 1800s, Berry has been noted to have had everything: speed, science, stamina, ring generalship, courage, and uncanny punching power. I suppose it was those attributes that saw him remain undefeated in his 71-fight career. At number 9, we have the European destroyer, Dewey Loy. Loy is one of those fighters that seem to have faded into the background in boxing history, despite beating lightweight king Carlos Ortiz twice. Loy's record was 115 wins with 3 losses. During that time, he put together a 71-fight unbeaten run, and to top things off, won his first and only world title in his very last bout. At number 8, we have the only man to win a round without throwing a punch, the will-o'-the-wisp, Willie Pep.
Before the fight, Pep had told all the ringside writers, watch me in the 3rd round. I'm going to win the round, and I'm not going to throw a punch. And guess what? He'd move in, he'd fake a punch, he'd grab him, he'd spin him, he'd move out. He'd begin a punch, he'd pull it back. He'd block a punch, he'd move under. And on 2 of the 3 scorecards, without having thrown a punch in the round, he won the round.
The defensive marvel of the 40s and 50s, Pep is often ranked among the 10 greatest boxers of all time. He's ranked number 5 by ESPN pound for pound and number 1 by Ring Magazine as the greatest featherweight ever. His elusive style saw him lose only once in 137 fights, beating Chalky Wright for the featherweight crown along the way. His 2 streaks consisted of 62 wins in a row, followed by a 72-fight unbeaten run. At number 7, we have the man we have been desperate to share with you guys for a long time, our second-ranked greatest fighter of all time pound for pound, the Pittsburgh Windmill, Harry Greb.
He was beaten badly by Harry Greb, the only time he ever lost.
Boxing Legends TV. Why do you always rank these no-name boxers from the turn of the century so high? They only fought bums. If only I could show you how many times misinformed boxing fans have commented that on this channel over the years, but I'm not bothered by it. In fact, I'm happy every time I get the chance to feature legends like this in a video. The more you guys at home see and hear about them, the longer their names will live on. Harry Greb is nothing short of the most badass fighter that ever lived. It's believed he has fought more champions and Hall of Famers combined than any other fighter in history, and of course he won just about every one of them. A career spanning just over 13 years saw Greb take to the ring 298 times. Within that time, beating legends like Maxie Rosenblum, Mickey Walker, Tiger Flowers, and Gene Tunney among so many others. It would take me another 10 minutes to get through them. Unfortunately, the footage you see on the screen now is the only footage of Harry Greb in the world, a true kick in the nuts for a big fan like myself. But the names on his resume speak for themselves, and reading his biography shedded light on the menacing style of the multiple weight brawler. Greb went 79 fights unbeaten from the years 1917 to 1920. At number 6, we have the man regarded by many as a top 3 middleweight of all time, Escopeta, Carlos Monzon.
You know who to knock it out of here? Carlos Monzon.
He was a big middleweight.
One of the greatest middleweights. You don't get the
defenses.
you don't get the recognition.
Yeah.
But Carlos Monzon was a bad man.
The crazy thing about Monzon's run, compared to most boxers on this list, was the fact after 20 fights, Monzon's record was 16-3 with 1 no contest. He avenged all 3 defeats and went undefeated for the remainder of his 100-bout career, retiring with a record of 87-3-9 with 1 no contest. In his book, Boxing's Greatest Fighters, boxing historian Bert Sugar wrote, "He had the reserved looks of a matinee idol, one with delicately marked brows, an unmarked face, and a remarkable body that could serve as a model for Hollywood beefcake pictures. And he fought the same way, with a coolness that could no more be melted than ice welded. His style a cross between aggressive caution and cautious aggression, with a long right hand thrown in for good measure." At number 5, we have the man I'm sure many people have been waiting to pop up. Pound for pound, the best fighter ever, Sugar Ray Robinson.
He was seamless, great, etc., etc., etc. The etceteras go on for about 5 pages or more.
From the very start of Robinson's career, it was pretty clear that we were witnessing something special. He won all 85 of his amateur fights before turning pro and losing only once in his first 132 contests, winning multiple world titles in multiple divisions, beating the best fighters the boxing world could offer. Amateur records are not included in this video, so Robinson's streak stood at 88. If you'd like to know more about Sugar Ray, we'll leave a link in the description to his greatest hits. Taking the number 4 slot, we have the man that 99% of fans will tell you has the longest unbeaten run in boxing, Julio Cesar Chavez.
His record represents the longest undefeated streak in boxing today with 89 wins. No losses, 1 draw, 77 wins coming by way of knockout.
Chavez's 90-fight unbeaten run was nothing less than a work of art. He made long title reigns in multiple weight divisions and destroyed the very best up-and-coming boxers in the sport. As the old saying goes, Father Time is undefeated. In Chavez's case, it couldn't be more true, as it's hard to think of many boxers past or present that would be able to beat a prime Chavez. The overall skill and ability was just breathtaking. At number 3, we have the former WBC lightweight champion and the one-time national boxing hero in Spain, Pedro Carrasco. Becoming the first boxing champion in Spanish history escalated Pedro to superstardom in the 1970s. He featured regularly in popular magazines and married one of the most successful Spanish singers in history, Rocío Jurado. The early success and European dominance for Carrasco saw him rack up an unbeaten streak of 92 fights. At number 2, we have one of the greatest fighters to never compete for a world title, Packy McFarland. Regardless of a world title, McFarland was still regarded as one of, if not the best lightweight in the world at the turn of the century. He competed at championship level and beat great fighters like Mike Gibbons and Jack Britton, using his impeccable boxing skills which eventually led him into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. You will often see publications saying McFarland retired undefeated with a record of 113-0 or 70-0. But he did in fact lose his 9th fight, and then remain unbeaten for the rest of his 103 contests. At number 1, we have the man that has been described as a freak of nature for his seemingly impossible punching power, the mighty atom, Jimmy Wilde.
And when you look at Jimmy Wilde, and bearing in mind people were smaller in those days, they weren't big guys, they weren't, there were more small people. I think Jimmy Wilde has got to go down to being one of the greats. I think he was a champion for around 7 years, and and travelled and won the title abroad and so forth. So I think he is an outstanding candidate.
Probably the best-looking winning record in boxing history, Wilde was born to be a boxer. He never took a single boxing lesson in his life, and yet when he entered the ring, he was turning the lights out on every man that would go near him. He went unbeaten for his first 104 bouts, and if you think that's impressive, he claimed that he fought for 5 years prior to when his official record started and won hundreds more on the spin. Unfortunately for him, it takes more than a boxer's word to etch such a feat in the history books. The superhuman flyweight from Wales is now regarded as one of the greatest flyweights ever.